What's going on? This is 318 Legends, where we have conversations with local athletes who have gone on to the next level. Today, our guest is a graduate of Neville High School, class of 2013. He was Mr. Louisiana football in 2013. He signed on to play receiver at LSU and then transferred to play receiver at TCU, and then eventually went on and signed a free agent deal to play for the Denver Broncos, and is currently a wide receivers coach at North Crowley High School in Fort Worth, Texas. Our guest today, Mr. John Diarse. John, how we doing today, man?
Oh man, I'm great, man. Just trying to stay warm. It snowed last night, so I get to stay home. Probably gonna get about 2 more days at home because of the weather. So I'm great. I'm great. I'm sitting in pajamas, man.
Yeah, man, it is cold here. It's not as cold as Dallas, like you said, but it's
Yeah.
25 here, and it has rained and rained, and it's gonna be cold.
Oh yeah, it's coming. I think it's 14 degrees here. So yeah, it's coming y'all way soon.
Man, it's like you said, you are from Neville High School here in Monroe, Louisiana. You played receiver at Neville your freshman year, then moved on to
Hmm.
play quarterback for the next few years. We know you won state, got you a ring in there. But what are some of your favorite career highlights or favorite moments from playing football at Neville High School?
Um, I would probably say, man. I mean, my freshman year was awesome, right? We won state. Um, and that was the first time since 1995 that our school won state. So it was awesome to be the only freshman to experience that. Um, and just that senior class, I really am close to that entire senior class, man, for the most part, because they really took me in like I was an older guy, and my only job was to go make plays, right? So they allowed that. Coach McCarty and Coach Lemoyne, gave me the opportunity to do it, and I was just grateful that I could deliver when it was my time. And then moving on from there, I would say some of my favorite moments is the bus rides, to games, right? Especially like state, right? You on the charter bus, you pulling up to the Superdome, like that whole experience, like you feel like a professional in high school, right? Walking into the locker room, the video, everybody's got cameras, and like, it was a dope, experience. And I was grateful enough to be able to play in three state title games, won two out of three. And so, just looking back on that sometimes, and even telling my kids here at North Crowley, like, it's like, Coach, I don't know if you was good. I said, I always tell them, go Google me, like, go to Google, right? And it's just like a little joke that we have with each other. And so I would say, yeah, some of my favorite moments is like the bus rides, the moments in the locker room after the game where I remember specifically my, I guess that was my freshman year. Yeah. So we'll win and everybody run in the locker room and, they got the music blasting, they flickering the lights, like, and everybody's like having a party, right? Because this is, I mean, we undefeated at this. Well, we lost to Western Road, but at this point, like we won in like 6, 7, 8 games in a row. And our coaches come in and they dancing with us, and just like those moments right there, man, you can't buy those, man. You can't. It's hard to even recreate that, right? So just being in a position to experience that, yeah, those are probably some of my favorite moments.
Yeah, man, I can't imagine Coach Mickey McCarty dancing. So if there's video of that, I'd have to see that on video, man. Um, so of course, like we said, you were a highly touted recruit, also out of Louisiana. You were recruited and you signed on to go to LSU. What was your recruiting process like? And then eventually, why LSU?
um, it was. I'm gonna say it was challenging because at that time, I made a name for myself, right? I got to go to camps and earn a couple stars, and be a 4 star, and then my senior year I won, the Miss Louisiana Football Award. So it was challenging to kind of decide where I wanted to be because everywhere sounded good to a 17, 18-year-old kid, right? You go on your official business and stuff like that, and they whining and dining you, and the players taking you out to parties, like everywhere was awesome. It was dope, right? Um, so I think when it really came down to it, there was a moment in the recruiting process where my dad he said, son, I'm not gonna tell you where to go. He said, but you got to remember, football only lasts from August to December. So you're gonna have to really decide from January to August, where you're gonna feel comfortable because football is only a few months, right? So because I think I had mentioned something about Oregon or something like that, and he was like, "You're not gonna like Eugene, like you're not going all the way up to Eugene, like and be out there in the spring, right?" And so ultimately it came down to LSU and Alabama, right? At the time, they were, I mean, pretty much the best two teams in the country at the time. And I remember in 2011, we went to the Alabama LSU game in November. And I told my mom before the game, I said, whoever wins this game is probably going to move in the top spot. And so the whole game is back and forth. Nothing, nobody scoring. It's field goals. Alabama wasn't like dynasty winning Alabama at the time, right? And LSU, I mean, they had guys, but it wasn't like they were winning, titles like that. So I was like, okay, I love Nick Saban. That was awesome to go to his camps and be coached personally by him and stuff like that. And then I loved LSU because at the time, they had Tyrann Mathieu, Jarvis Landry, Odell Beckham, like they had all the guys, right? So I told my mom before the game, I said, whoever wins this game, I'm gonna probably lean that way. And she was like, are you sure? And I was like, it's gonna be one of these two, right? I'm gonna either play for Saban or I'm gonna go play for Coach Miles. And so, like I said, the game was a defensive game, and it came down to like the last field goal, right? And so obviously LSU won it and kicked the field goal to win it. And I remember after the game, the coaches coming to the recruiting room with all the recruits, and Coach Saban came up to me. He was like, I know what you're thinking. He said, but just make sure that you're sure about it. And I said, yes, sir. And ultimately, man, when you're from Louisiana, like you guys know, like it's almost a sin if you don't go to LSU, right? So ultimately, I picked there. I got recruited by Adam Henry, and honestly, he was a large reason why I picked it. He was the receiver coach at the time. He was a guy that I could see myself being not only coached by, but like mentored by, right? And I still talk to him to this day. Like I think he texted me this morning, right? And so our relationship has been going on now for at least 10 years, right? 10, 11 years. And at the time, I wasn't thinking about it like that, right? But it was just something about him that made me feel like this is the place, right? And I remember going to my official to LSU, and Jarvis took me back to the players' like apartment. And as soon as I walked in, it was like, "You coming here, right?" And I was like, And Jarvis was like, "Yeah, he'll be here. He not gonna say it, but he gonna be here." And sure enough, like I went in January, and it was like history after that. So yeah, I would say it was challenging, but the recruiting process was challenging. But I think at the end of the day, I think I made the best decision for me and my family. Right, my family came to all my games, even on the road. They came. I got my grandma in Death Valley. I'll never forget that. She's an older lady. She's never been to a college football game, and the first game she goes to is in Death Valley. When we playing, I think we played Florida. I think. So it was a wild experience. So it's moments like that that I don't think recruits think about. I mean, obviously you want to go play as a freshman, right? But you making this decision for 4 years, right? And I wanted my family to be a part of that. So yeah, LSU was the clear choice.
Yeah, man. Well, I mean, I can't argue. I think everyone that grows up in Louisiana at some point thinks it'd be cool to put on the LSU gear and play for the Tigers. But
Yeah,
we know,
for sure.
eventually you end up at this great school out in Fort Worth. I mean, I don't know.
Ah, yes, sir.
You know,
Yes, sir.
you end up at TCU, man. So we know that the transfer process is way different now than when you were in college with NIL and all that. But why transfer? What was your process like? And eventually, why TCU?
Ooh, okay. So like you said, the transfer process is totally different then, right? Because now where it's the portal where you can go anywhere and play. At that time, when I was going through my process, you could not go to another school in the SEC, and if you didn't graduate before you transferred, then you would have to sit out a year, right? So I had to take all that into consideration, and so if anybody pays really close attention to LSU, they like to highlight, their freshman guys, especially their 4-star, 5-star guys, right? And so my freshman year, I was competing really well. I got a high ankle sprain like 2 or 3 weeks before the first game, and eventually I redshirted, right? So I was like, it's fine, whatever. I understand, I get it. And then my next year, we had a couple guys come in like Malachi Dupree, Leonard Fournette, and Jamal Adams, right? Those guys came in, and I think I had a pretty decent season for the most part. I think I made plays in big games. Um, and so, it was good. I felt like it was good. My receiver coach was still there and everything was great, right? My third year there, my receiver coach took an NFL job. Same guy that recruited me, same guy that's been mentoring me for the last 2 years. Like he took an NFL job, and that hit differently, right? Because at the time, and I try to encourage my kids not to do this now, but at the time, it's really easy for a kid to pick a school for a certain coach. Like I want to go there because I want to be coached by him, or I want to be with that guy. And it hurt when he left. Because I was like, this is my guy. Like he gonna make sure I get my reps. He gonna make sure we get some plays in the game plan for me. And now he's gone. So a new guy came in, and Leonard Fournette's freshman year, like you could already see he's gonna be a dog. You could see it. And so that third year, we got a new receiver coach in. Me and him bumped heads a lot. And I would probably say now, looking back on it, it was probably more my fault than anything. What we didn't really mesh, right? Like you're not my guy. I don't really know you. You didn't recruit me. Like it just don't feel right. And I started to see within like the first 3 games, Leonard was gonna get 30 carries a game. And at the time, like the receivers, it's totally different now at LSU. But at the time, like you might get a target, you might not, right? And so Cam Cameron was our OC at the time, and once Leonard had he had a awesome game against Auburn. After that, it was like, yeah, we got to give Leonard the ball 35 times, and it started to the new receiver coach started to like do a rotation that I just knew like, nah, I'm gone. Like so, it was me and Trey Quinn. Whenever me and Trey Quinn would go into the game, we're blocking, right? As soon as it's third down pass, they pull us out and they put 2 other guys in, right? And so I started to kind of notice the trends. And I was like, yeah, I think I'm going. I think I'm gonna go. Like, and so I remember during like bowl practice, because you're at school while everybody else is on break. I remember doing bowl practice. Me, Trey Quinn, and Tyron Johnson at the time, we were having a conversation, and I just flat out said, dude, I think I'm gonna transfer. And so one of them was like, yeah, I think so too. And then the other one was like, bro, if y'all leave, like, I might leave too. And so I remember after it was maybe like 2 or 3 days before we left for the bowl game, I set up a meeting with Coach Miles, and I just sat down and told him like, yeah, man, I don't think this is gonna work for me here. And he was like, well, I appreciate you kind of waiting to the end of the season, but let's talk about it before. Let's talk about it when we get back. And so I kind of felt like he kind of dismissed the conversation. And when I walked out of the office, I called my mom. I was like, yeah, I think I'm going. Like, I don't think I can do it. And so she was like, well, just pray about it, and, we'll see. So I graduated. I got my degree. And on the way to Houston, I called my coach, Adam Henry. I called him. I said, hey, like, I think I'm going to transfer. Where should I go? And he was like, well, are you sure you're going to transfer? I was like, yeah. Like, I almost hate it here at this point. And he was like, okay. He's like, well, there's a couple of people, a couple of places you can go. TCU was one of them. Stanford was one of them. Oklahoma State was another one. And so I had probably about 3 or 4 schools that I could have went to. And I was like, man, I want to go somewhere where they like throwing the rock like 30, 40 times a game, right? Well, that same year was the year TCU had Josh Doctson, they had Trayvon Boykins, like they had the guys, right? And they throwing the ball, they throwing the ball like 30, 40 times a game, right? So I was like, I wonder what it would be like going to TCU. And so we go play our bowl game, we win. When we get back to the school, TCU had beat Ole Miss in the bowl game, beat them like 40 something to like 10. Like they blew them out, right? And I was like, yeah, I'm going to TCU. So I called the guy that I knew at TCU, or I called my high school coach first because he knew some guys at TCU because they was recruiting Turpin at the time. And so, my high school coach kind of put me in contact with some TCU people, and they was like, okay, yeah, like we'd love to have you. And so I made that phone call. TCU called me and was like, "Hey, we see it. We trying to see if this guy's gonna leave. If he leaves, like we putting you in that spot." By the glory of God, the guy left and transferred, and I got that spot. So I had that conversation the day we got back from the bowl game. The next day I was gone, like apartment packed out of there. So, and then that was the end of LSU.
Yeah, man. You got any favorite moments from TCU? For me, I remember the Big 12 championship game, the touchdown against Oklahoma, where you caught
Yeah,
the ball and the
yeah,
ref was like, "Oh, you didn't catch it," and you were like, "No, go check that out. I caught that ball."
yes,
I mean, you
for
got any
sure.
favorite moments from being at TCU?
I would say that one. That's probably number one. Number two would be it would be probably the West Virginia game. I had a game. I would definitely say I had a game. I ran a guy over. I caught like a fade ball and like kind of like threw the guy in the dirt at the same time and kind of like stepped on it like his chest. I was on a different planet that game. So I would say Oklahoma, West Virginia, um, and then I would say the other moments like off the field was just like, being able to go talk to Coach Patterson whenever I wanted to, right? And him introducing me to just some businessmen that graduated from TCU and guys that had businesses in Fort Worth, and just kind of introducing me to like people that I would need after graduation, right? Or people that, could help me after graduation. And so I think that was probably one of my favorite moments. Is just like, Coach, I think, after I'm done, like I think I want to like get into like my own business and stuff like that. And he introduced me to some people. I still, talk to those people every now and again. Coach Patterson just had a players reunion this past season, where all the players that he ever coached in his 25 years came to his house, and we had like a big like pregame party. So I would say, moments like that where they didn't make me feel like I was a transfer. They made me feel like, I had been there from the beginning and really embraced me and pulled me in. Um, I would say probably Coach Meacham, just cracking jokes in the film room, just like, because he's a fun dude. If you ever meet Coach Meacham, he's a fun dude. But just cracking jokes with him and just enjoying the experience, man. Because I know, like, again, at the time the transfer process was different, and guys didn't really embrace it as much. But I'm thankful that I transferred. It really set my life on a whole different path.
Yeah, man. Well, I'm glad you went to TCU as a TCU fan. I'm so happy.
Yeah, for sure, man.
So next, of course, after college is the draft, free agency. And
Yeah.
so what were your expectations with the draft? Were there any? And then of course we know you signed a free agent deal with the Broncos, but just from draft process with combines, workouts to free agency, what was that in your perspective? What was that for you?
Um, it was hard, man. It was almost like you just didn't know what to do, right? Because most times really good players, right, have they have before the season is over, they already got an agent, right? Or they have somebody working with an agent, making sure that, they get invited to the combine and all this other stuff, right? So it was different for me because at the time, I didn't know that your stats and all that stuff mattered, right? I always thought of it as, you know, who was who was productive and who could play. It wasn't necessarily about having 1,000 yards receiving and like 14 touchdowns. Like I thought of it as shit. Football players are gonna get recruited. I mean, drafted, right? If you're a football player, you're gonna be drafted. I didn't really have anybody to kind of help me with it. My receiver coach at the time, he was an older guy. I mean, he knew a couple guys just from relationships, but I didn't have enough. I didn't have the stats to be, represented by those guys basically. And so we have what they call like agent day, where all these different agents, they come in and they set up meetings with you basically. And so I remember like telling my parents like, I don't know if anybody's gonna like pick me. Like I don't really know because I hadn't really talked to anybody. Nobody really reached out like that. Um, well, I'll take that back. One guy did reach out, but I didn't really know who he was like that. But I did an interview with like 3 different agents, and at the time, I was kind of like, well, who do these guys have as clients already, and what can they do for me, right? I know I'm not at the time. I had already knew I wasn't going to the combine. I didn't get an invite to the combine. So I'm like, well, who's gonna have enough time and energy and effort to like really invest in me and really put me in the greatest position? So at the time, I had picked this one agent. He represented Jamal Adams and a couple other guys that I knew. So I was kind of familiar with him a little bit. So I went with him, and he was from Atlanta. And so, he asked me, he's like, well, what do you want to train? He's like, I can send you to Cali, or you can train right here in Texas. And so, of course, I picked Texas. Like, I mean, all my, I got folks here. Like, I can be comfortable in the process. I don't have to be way out in Cali, like by myself trying to figure it out. Now, hindsight, 2020, I should have went to Cali. But it was great. I trained at the Michael Johnson Performance Center out in Texas. Michael Johnson is Olympian in track, and a lot of guys that I knew had gone through training there, and so their process is dope. You working with other guys, you working out with other guys that's getting drafted, guys that they're gonna have ESPN come in and film them while they training, and just watching all of that was like awesome, right? I'm like, I'm right here, right? I'm right here with some of the best guys that get drafted. And I think at the time they had the two twin brothers from UCF training there. And there was a big story on them because one of them had got a scholarship and the other one walked on. But they ended up, by the time they senior year, they ended up both having dope years, and they got invited to the combine and all that stuff, right? So that was dope to watch that. And so the training process was different because you're doing a lot of stuff you've never done before, right? You waking up in the morning, and at the time I was a little bit overweight, so like I had a nutritionist like making sure I eat certain things in the morning, making sure I go sit in the sauna at the end of the day and kind of sort out some stuff. Training was a little different because I'm used to college training, right? But now you're training like a professional. So one day it's gonna be weights and routes, the other day is gonna be speed work all day, right? So getting used to that transition, that it was different, but I appreciated it because I actually got faster, I actually got stronger, I got bigger. And at the end of the day, I felt good about wherever I was going. I felt like I was gonna be able to do my thing. So draft day comes around. I already kind of felt like I wasn't gonna get drafted just because I didn't go to the combine. So my family wanted to do this big draft party and all this stuff, like, and I will honestly say that was miserable, like miserable. Cause everybody's like my parents renting out this big place and everybody's there and everybody's like, they was wearing my brand at the time. Like it was a dope experience, right? But, like, I mean, you guys hear the stories of guys not getting drafted and y'all see what that looks like, that they, it's tough. And so the draft ends, and at this point, I'm like furious with my agent. Like, I don't get drafted at all, man. Like, not even like Mr. Irrelevant. And I think Trey Quinn got it that year, or maybe it was the next year. But anyway, he was like, well, I just got off the phone with, the Broncos, the Jets, and the Ravens. He was like, well, where you want to go? And I was like, shit, I want to go where they winning. What do you mean? Like, the Jets wasn't good at the time. The Ravens wasn't good at the time. Like, they hadn't got Lamar yet. So it's like, yeah, I want to go where they winning. So I signed with Denver. And that experience alone was a lot. It was a lot, man. That was a lot. So I came out with Cortland Sutton, Deshaun Hamilton, Demarius Thomas was there at the time, rest in peace. Emmanuel Sanders, Case Keenum, Paxton Lynch, Chad Kelly. Like it was dope. It was dope. Chris Harris was still there. Von Miller was still there. So like that was an experience, man. That I got to kind of play and practice with those guys. And I remember DT maybe after like the first week, he like pulled me aside and he was like, "Hey, bro, like you really good. So I'm gonna show you how to like stay. I'm gonna show you how to get picked." And at that moment, I kind of felt like he became my mentor. So every morning, like he making sure, like it was crazy. Like DT had his own juice. He had his own like lunch, breakfast, all this stuff. So he kind of like put me into his regimen because he was like, you remind me of me. Like I came in overweight, and then I had to figure all this stuff out. And he was like, I'm gonna help you. And so he took me under his wing. You know, we stayed after practice. He was showing me different stuff. Like he was literally coaching me. Like he knew he was gonna get traded, but like he was coaching me, like real life coaching me. And and he was like, yeah, I put in a good word with the head coach for you. And he was like, he really likes you. Like they want to keep you. And so at the time, I'm thinking like, oh, well, I'm straight. I'm gonna be good, right? So we come down to like the last game, and he was like, DT, he came to me. He's like, hey, just play. He's like, I already took care of it. Like Vance Joseph, because Vance Joseph was the head coach at the time. He's like, he already told me gonna keep you. So so we played the last game. I'm like, cool. We get back to the facility, and we got to have our exit meetings, right? So I go meet with John Elway, and he was like, we love you. Like we love the way you play. We love your story. Like you've been, we've watched you grow every single week, right? And he was like, but unfortunately, we can't keep you because at the time it was Carlos Henderson. They had just paid Carlos Henderson like a bunch of money, and Carlos was kind of going through some stuff at home around the time, so he missed like training camp basically. And he missed like half of like spring training camp or whatever. He was like, we just paid him a bunch of money, and so we got to let you go, but like we want to keep you close because we might bring you back for the practice squad. And so I was kind of distraught then, like sitting in the office, like John Elway sitting across from me, like you guys are, and he's like telling me like, yeah, we gotta let you go. And so I text DT and I was like, yeah, bro, they're gonna let me go. He was like, all right, just stay close. Like I'm gonna work on something for you. And so I remember going back to my room and I'm just bawling, like bawling at the time. I'm like, I think I've had a pretty dope career, like from high school to now. Like, and this is the first time somebody's like letting me know, like, nah, we gonna go with somebody else. And they called me, and the people in the front office called me, and they was like, hey, well, two things that can happen. You can stay here, or we can fly you back to Dallas, and we'll stay in contact. I was like, at the time, I didn't know anybody in Denver, and I didn't really just want to linger around. So I was like, just fly me back to Dallas. And you guys can call me if things change. But ultimately I think Carlos ended up coming back, but then they like cut him, and so that just made it even worse because it was like, bro, if y'all knew y'all was gonna cut him, y'all could have just, you know what I mean. So I went through that whole thing, and that after that, it's just like anybody else. You just trying to find the next opportunity to play. I went to the CFL, played out there for a little bit. I played arena. Well, I was about to play arena, and then COVID hit. So it was just like, yeah, man, let's start really thinking about what else you want to do, because I had fired my agent, like, cause he did some funny stuff. I probably, when we get off here, I'll probably disclose that to y'all, but he did some stuff that I didn't like, and so I ended up firing him. But once the pandemic hit, it's just like anybody else. Everybody's in the house. Everybody's trying to figure out like, what am I going to do? Who am I? Trying to find your identity, right? And so after that, I got into coaching, and that's where I'm at now. So yeah, so Denver was an awesome experience. Getting cut, the worst thing ever, but I'm grateful. I'm grateful that I got to play with some guys and get coached by a phenomenal receiver, man. Golly, DT was my guy. That was my guy.
Yeah. Man, as a Broncos fan, I love Demaryius Thomas.
Yeah.
Kind of like one of our last questions. So
Okay.
I didn't send this to you, but I just thought about it as we're sitting here because you kind of answered question 6 without me asking it.
I
You're
got
a
you.
middle schooler, you're a high schooler, you know that you're a good athlete, there's a good chance you'll play college ball, right? At this point, you're
Mm-hmm.
probably getting some looks. Looking back, did anything live up to your expectation? Playing at LSU, playing college ball, making it to the NFL for a little bit. Did it meet your expectation? Did it exceed expectation?
Um, I think I met him because, like, as a kid, when you're in middle school and you're in high school, like people would jokingly say, "Hey, he gonna make it to the league. He gonna make it to the league, right?" And so I think proving to myself that I could make it met my expectations. But when I made it, I I started to quickly see how cutthroat it was,
Mm.
right? Like I never forget. I had the guy in the locker next to me. He's an O lineman. Me and him got really cool over the time, but they had like cut him, and then he went to try to play somewhere else, and then they brought him back, and then they cut him again. And I just started like seeing how much of a business it really was. Where I'm like, man, this don't even feel fun anymore. Like it's not even like not even like obviously I love the football part of it, but like it's so many conversations that's happening in the building to where you really just don't know.
Mm.
You don't know if you're on the good side of the conversation or if you're on the bad side of the conversation. And you trying to do everything right. You trying to go to the meetings. You trying to do extra. You trying to impress the coaches and the people that are evaluating you because everything is evaluation. Like they even watch you eat lunch, like trying to see like, okay, is he really doing what he's supposed to do? So
Mm. Wow.
I think I met my expectations of like making it. Um, I wish I could have exceeded it, but you know, I'm grateful, man. I can sit here with you guys and like tell the story, and I can tell you know my players and the kids that I train the same stories. Like you know, it's awesome to have a goal to make it to the league, but you got to understand how much of a business it really is, and you got to really be prepared, you know, in case that don't go your way. So
Yeah.
yeah, man, it's I think it met my expectations though.
Yeah, man. Well, hey, we're so glad you came on. Hey, before we wrap up, we just want to ask you if you have anything you want to plug. You have Yahweh Sports and you coach out
Yeah.
at North Crowley. Anything you want to plug? Let us know what's going on in your life.
Man, so Yahweh Sports, long story, but I'm gonna keep it short. Yahweh Sports is basically a brand or organization that mentors and guides kids, right? So my biggest thing is I want to help you transition through the different levels of your career, right? So I always talk about the 4+1. The first transition is from middle school to high school, well, Pee Wee to middle school, right? And so I talk to parents about, you know, how to make sure their kids are ready for middle school, right? And then from middle school to high school is the second transition. So I talk about stuff like that and I mentor kids and stuff like that. The third transition is from high school to college. I talk about those experiences, kind of what you need to be prepared for, like teaching them about the NIL stuff and, you know, just how to put yourself in better position. And then obviously from college to the pros is the fourth transition. And then my biggest one, and I always say this is the bonus, the plus one is after the plus one is, you know, once your career ends, at whatever point that is, whether that's high school, whether that's college, or whether you're fortunate enough to make it to the pros, like, you know, my brand and my organization is kind of like a playbook or like a game plan of how to smoothly transition to the next thing. Because a lot of athletes deal with identity crisis because we put everything we have into, you know, our careers. Like that's how we identify ourselves. And I tell the example all the time, like if you ask Johnny Appleseed who is he, he's gonna say, I'm Johnny Appleseed and I play quarterback for such and such, right? Or I play receiver or I play whatever, I play football, right? But at the end of the day, like Johnny Appleseed, like, yeah, you play football, but who are you really? You know, what are your interests? Like what are you really into? What do you really love outside of sports? And so my brand is basically a platform, an organization to help you figure that stuff out and really kind of cut out or save, you know, kids from going through identity crisis because it's a real thing. Like it's not talked about much, but it is a real thing how athletes really struggle trying to figure out who they are once their careers end. So that's basically what Yahweh Sports is. I train kids. Obviously, I coach at North Crowley. I just started a podcast recently. I've been doing a lot. I've been doing a lot. I've been staying busy, man. So it's been dope. It's been dope.
Yeah, man. Well, I know the kids that you mentor or help out with Yahweh Sports. I bet they are so grateful for you.
Yeah.
Having a guy like you mentor and just show them inside the ropes, like you kind of showed us today. And we're very grateful that you came on today. And so, as we head out, if you're watching at home, thank you for watching. From the Terrible Takes crew, from 318 Legends, from me, John Diarse, and the guys here, we just want to say thank you for watching. Have a great day. Peace out.
Peace.